Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Is there really a difference between a financial advisor and someone who does retirement planning? Oh, yeah.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, retirement specialist, and six-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
Over the past 40 years of working in the financial trenches, it recently dawned on me as to why savers are so confused about retirement, and more specifically, which financial products and financial strategies they should employ with their money in this thing called retirement. The confusion, of course, is financial advice, and not just any financial advice, but the many varying opinions that come from the financial world that differ wildly depending on who you're listening to. Don't believe me? Just Google some of the following topics and the top-of-the-mind questions on the hearts and minds of savers to see what you come up with. Questions like, should I buy an annuity? Should I invest in Bitcoin? Should I do a Roth conversion? And here's a common question among savers, when should I begin to take my Social Security? And that's just a few of the questions that will draw several different opinions. And seeing as though there are thousands of advisors along with thousands of talking heads on radio, TV, and the internet, you will get to enjoy thousands of different opinions. So who are you going to trust with all of the conflicting advice you are now receiving? Well, as we're about to learn, it is not the advice that is the source of all the confusion among savers, but rather the lack of a plan, which is the topic of today's show, the difference between an advisor and a planner. Well, welcome, folks, to the Worry-Free Retirement. And yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest, retirement planning specialist and full-time fiduciary, Tony Walker. And today I'm going to share with you the secret to a worry-free retirement and why having a plan will help you cut through the confusion of all the advice you're receiving from the financial world. But first, let me introduce two young lads in the Worry-Free Production Studios who are always giving me advice each week to make this show better and better. America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orander, along with Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson. Okay, let's say you are retired or getting ready to retire in the next few years, which is our clientele. You have saved a lot of money in your 401k or other retirement accounts, and now it's showtime. You've got to decide where to invest your life savings, knowing that your paycheck is about to end and this savings is going to have to last as long as you do. Where do you turn for advice? And how, here's the key question, how do you know the advice you're about to receive is the right advice for you? I mean, just log on to the internet and start asking some of these questions and watch how many different opinions you will receive from these questions. So why is this? Why in the world would there not be just one answer to each and every question? Well, because here's the dirty little secret in the financial world, and it's about advice. You can get all the advice you can find, but in the end, it's all just someone's opinion. That's it. And while some of us may have more educated and experienced opinions than others, nevertheless, the advice you receive from anyone on any topic is based on their opinion. Otherwise, it wouldn't be called advice. Which is why I'm not only a financial advisor sharing my opinions with savers, but first and foremost, my background and my training is in the art of planning, and quite frankly, I'm pretty good at it. So how do we at Tony Walker Financial use our expertise in planning to form our opinions on what the saver needs to do to be worry-free in retirement? Well, when I return, I'm going to share with you 3 different case studies to prove my point as to why having a plan is way more important than getting advice. I'm Tony Walker. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
The individuals in this interview are uncompensated clients at the time of filming. Their opinions expressed were provided to Worry-Free Productions for use as an advertisement by Tony Walker Financial. Please refer to Form CRS and Form ADV Part 2A Disclosure Brochure for information regarding the advisory services offered by Tony Walker Financial.
Our Tony Walker Financial Client Spotlight today shines brightly on Beth and Sam Thornton.
Well, in the past, we had been through a couple of other companies, and the first one that we kind of had the impression guy was like a used car salesman. And in the second company, we were just a very small spec. We were ready for a change, and strictly from the TV commercials is how we found out about Tony. And I was concerned in retirement because I don't like to sit around, got to stay busy, and I honestly was a bit concerned about filling my time, but it has not been an issue. It seems about the time I retired that everybody found out, hey, this guy works on clocks, and they come out of the woodwork. Sometimes I come home and find them sitting on the back porch. So what I do with the repairs and restorations, I do right upstairs in the shop, and metal polishing and all the repairs and soldering, welding, got a metal lathe, and so lucky, got a pretty nice shop.
But we both had hobbies that we enjoyed doing. So we knew that we would not be bored during retirement. I have been scrapbooking and card making and going to crafting events for over 20 years. And have a lot of friends that I am able to do this with.
Well, I think everybody has to have a passion for something. You know, you got to find something that you want to get up for in the morning. I think it'd probably be the number one piece of advice. If you don't have anything, find a new skill.
Yes, learn to do something.
I'm one that believes that basically anybody can do anything they want to do if they want to do it bad enough. Find something you can be passionate about. So,
looking for an advisor you can trust? Schedule your free phone call with Tony at TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call 1-877-499-9255.
Chalk it up to having a degree in psychology, but in 1986, just 2 years after entering the financial world and, quite frankly, growing weary of pitching financial products to anybody I could talk to, I realized that what I enjoyed most about this business was not the financial products and strategies we offered, but rather the joy that came from first learning what makes people tick and then finding out their goals and aspirations for their lives, and then doing the best I could to help them achieve whatever it was they were looking for. It was a huge turning point for me and led me to not only taking lots of time to study and learn from some of the top financial institutions around, but also to study under some of the greatest financial minds I could find. It was time spent on my own and money spent to train myself in what I call the art of retirement planning. No, I could have just kept selling products based on opinions and skipped the whole learning thing of planning altogether. But instead, I decided to become a planner. But back then, my only exposure to retirement was watching my granddad's worry-free lifestyle play out back in 1978. It was at that point in my career to come up with a planning process that emulated the carefree lifestyle that I witnessed my granddad enjoy, one that included something he called mailbox money. Armed with this mission in mind to help and find savers and to help them worry less about retirement, I decided to learn more about people and planning and how one day I could create a process that would allow our clients to be more worry-free in retirement, yep, just like Granddad. But not just any client, but those I deemed to be what I call the saver personality. Those who, like my granddad, were much more concerned about the return of their money as opposed to the return on it. And boy, as we record this show in November of 2024 with the election behind us, it appears the stock market is rising to the stars. But me, as a planner whose mission is to help these savers be worried less in retirement, I have to stick to my guns and I have to stick to the plan. Don't be enamored with what's going on in the stock market or whether now is the time to load up on Bitcoin. Remember how hard it was for you to save this money and your desire to be armed with security in the planning process. The problem is, most of you don't have a plan because the financial world doesn't have a plan for you either. You got to understand, the financial world's goal is to react to what's hot and what's not. Folks, that's not a plan. A 401k is not a plan. A Roth conversion is not a plan. Annuities, stocks, bonds, CDs, these are not plans. They are simply products, transactions, strategies that fall under the advice of opinion. So let's look at 3 different cases that I worked on very recently just to see how different folks' situations are and how a plan is necessary in all 3 of these situations. Let's take a look at, first of all, plan number 1. The 63-year-old single male. Let's take a look at this. This male had a $250,000 home with $100,000 of debt and had about a 4% interest rate on the home. This person also had 2 rental properties that were paid for and he was collecting a good rent on. But here's the problem. He was worried as he gets older that he was going to have a lot of maintenance and take care of these homes and wondering if he should sell them. He also had $100,000 in an IRA and $50,000 in savings. And basically he came to me and said that he wasn't sure what to do with these rental properties. I asked why. He looked me up and he said, well, Tony, I went to my financial advisor and he immediately said that I should just sell the properties and invest the money with him. And when I asked how he felt about that, he said, well, I realized when he just blew off my situation and wanted me to just sell these properties that he just wanted to have a transaction. So a good example of not having a plan before making a major financial decision. Here's another case. This came up the other day. 71-year-old couple living fine on their Social Security and pension, but they were worried about something called the required minimum distribution that all of us have to worry about when you turn 73. He had an IRA of about $500,000. She had an IRA of about $200,000. Had about $100,000 in the bank. They wanted to keep liquid for travel. They were charitably minded. They wanted to start gifting money to the kids. And again, they talked to their current advisor, who apparently didn't talk to them about any of these goals. What did the advisor want to do? Immediately wanted them to do a Roth conversion and put all of the money from the Roth conversion into an annuity with a bonus. No thought given at all to the common sense of why you would even do this. Why were they confused? Why did they come to me? It's the usual result. No written game plan. Another example that came up the other day, folks, again, I'm meeting 20 to 30 people a week. I'm in the trenches. I see this all the time. 68-year-old widow, husband died 5 years ago. The financial advisor he always had, she maintained, but then he calls out of the blue and says he's moved firms. Wants her to move the money over to his new firm. Well, in the meantime, the existing firm has a new advisor calling her, asking her to stay put. She comes to me for a second opinion. I said, first of all, ma'am, we are independent advisors. We're not going to move anywhere. And second of all, I asked her, where in the world is your plan? And of course, she said, I don't have one. So therein lies the problem, folks. Most people do not have a plan, and that's why they are so confused and so vulnerable to what we call financial opinion. So if that's you, if you're sitting there and you finally have realized, Tony, now I understand why I'm confused and worried, I don't have a plan. If that sounds like you, then we need to talk. And we made this so easy to do, we call it the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call, and here's how this works. All you got to do is log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. You're going to hit that Let's Get Started button. We will contact you to arrange that 10-minute phone call with you and I. Then if it merits, we can meet in person. That's not a problem. Oh, by the way, internet not your thing? That's not a problem either. Just give us a call anytime at 877-499-9255. We'll be right back. Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a pension buyout? Has the company you work for moved, been acquired, or closed its doors forever? And finally, do you have a 401k with a previous employer you'd like to move to safer territory? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k or lump sum pension to Tony Walker Financial. Let's meet in person to discuss your retirement options. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your free, no-obligation appointment. Let us help you today.
And now it's time for Tony in the Trenches.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us here on the Worry-Free Retirement. I've got our next Tony in the Trenches right here, so let's get to it. This TNT comes to us from Peggy in Jeffersonville, Indiana. Tony, some 10 years ago, I rolled my 401k to a local advisor who placed it in an annuity. Since that time, I never heard from them until recently when they called out of the blue to say they had better options with my money. Why would they be contacting me now?
Great question from Peggy, and boy, we're seeing this come up more and more. So a little history to explain what's going on in the annuity world. Right after 9/11, I was one of the few people out there that was a financial advisor that started focusing on fixed annuities. They weren't really very popular back then. Since that time, I've personally written over $700 million of fixed annuities. I know these products really well, and more importantly, the experience of watching them play out has really been helpful to me, my practice, and of course our clients. Now, since that time, in the last 10 to 15 years, more and more people started selling annuities. A lot of annuity contracts are written on what's called a 10-year surrender term. They're very common. Nothing necessarily wrong with them. You just have to understand how to use these products, because if you bail out, I'll show you this in a minute, there are penalties. Now, why is Peggy and many others starting to all of a sudden be contacted by former advisors who sold them annuities 10 plus years ago, and now all of a sudden these advisors are coming out of the woodwork wanting to talk because these surrender charges are up and these annuities can now be rolled over or moved to something totally different. At Tony Walker Financial, by the way, if you do get a call from somebody wanting to move over an annuity, even if it's got a small surrender charge, please, before you make a move on that, contact us. Folks, we've been doing annuities so long, many of you are going to get locked right back into another annuity. They're wanting to turn that annuity into another commission. You have to be really careful with this. So to help us understand how this works, I'm going to walk over to the whiteboard, and I'm going to explain surrender charges. I've actually never done this in all the years I've talked about annuities. By the way, there's a great booklet online if you want to download it I wrote called Annuities Made Easy. Just go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, hit that download section, and download that booklet. I think it's really going to help you. But let's say this is a 10-year annuity contract. What that means is if you cash in the annuity within the first 10 years that it is written, they're going to charge a surrender charge, all right? It's different for different companies. This isn't science here. I'm just kind of showing you examples of how it works, again, because different companies charge different percentages. But let's say you put in $100,000, maybe like Peggy, you rolled over a 401k, been to a dinner seminar, it sounded great. Maybe it's an indexed annuity, they're promising you the moon. You throw it in there, and it's for long term. Okay, so the first year, maybe the index goes up 2%, so it's worth 102. But notice you got this surrender value. If Peggy were to cash this in, she only gets $90,000. Pretty big hit. Maybe it goes up to 106 the next year. Surrender charge goes away a little bit, but it's still hefty. Maybe the next year, the indexed annuity 110. You can see it. 2 years in a row, I did this on purpose. You know, an indexed annuity may not grow. We've seen this some. Even though the markets go up depending on the indices, participation rates, it could stay level. Now, granted, you're not going to lose anything, but it may not go up in value. The surrender charge, though, would start going away because of the number of years. Each year, it gets less and less. So as we fast forward down to the end of the 10th year, notice the contract value, that's what the actual annuity is worth, and the surrender value are finally equal. Okay, this is why so many agents are now looking into their files trying to find these, even though you haven't heard from them for 10 years. They're wanting to make another sale. The annuity is out of surrender, and they can churn that thing and do something else with it. That's why they're contacting you, which, again, you got to ask yourself, well, where have they been the last 10 years? Well, they're coming back because there's another sale to be had. Now, be aware of this. There's a lot of annuities out there that have bonuses attached. This might have been offered a 10% bonus, okay? You got to be careful because some of these contracts, the bonus is not fully vested until even like the 14th year. So that means, yeah, you might get all of your surrender value waived, but then if you surrender the contract, part of the bonus may not be given back to you. So you got to be really careful of this. Here's my suggestion. If you own a current annuity, if it's been a few years, maybe nobody's looked at it, especially if you're coming up on this mark or you get this random letter that somebody wants to review your annuity, call us and get a second opinion. There would be no cost or obligation. All you got to do is log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Click on that Let's Get Started. Tell us what you're contacting us about. If it's this issue, we can certainly help. Sometimes over the phone, we can try to help you think through things. But if we need to, we can meet in person and go over your annuities, do an analysis, absolutely free. Meet with somebody that's very experienced in this world. If the internet's not your thing, by the way, just give us a call anytime, 877-499-9255, and we'll be happy at no cost or obligation to review your annuity, especially if it's coming out of surrender, to see if there's some better options available to you. We'll be right back.
Our Tony Walker Financial 5-star review comes to us from Jill. We have been very happy with Tony Walker Financial. Having started with very little knowledge of how to best invest, Tony and Trey have both taken their time to answer all our questions. We recommend them without reservation. We also really enjoyed the Client Appreciation Dinner. If you'd like to read more of our 5-star reviews, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Have yourself a merry little Christmas.
Worry-Free Music presents the greatest collection of Christmas covers ever assembled.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Hey!
Tony Walker's A Humdinger Christmas. 486 timeless classics across 6 digitally remastered 8-track tapes.
Happy holidays.
Every song fills your home with holiday magic.
Sing ding-a-ding, ring ding-a-ding, ding ding-a-ding, dong ding-a-ding, ring ding-a-ding, ding ding-a-ding, ring ding-a-ding, ring ding-a-ding.
Don't miss this opportunity to receive Tony Walker's A Humdinger Christmas, the perfect way to celebrate the joy of this holiday season.
Dashing through the snow, hey, and 1-horse open sleigh, yeah.
Only $685 plus $3 shipping and handling. Order yours today.
8-track tape player not included. Offer void where prohibited.
And from all of us at Tony Walker Financial, have a Merry Christmas. Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. Tony Walker here, and our theme has been the difference between an advisor, that is someone such as ourselves, that give financial advice, and we've deduced that really just means our financial opinions, versus someone who is a planner. And hopefully what you're seeing at Tony Walker Financial, we are planners first. We are retirement planning specialists. We work only with savers. Our main clientele generally is over the age of 55. We have over 3,000 clients. I've personally overseen more than 5,000 game plans. I could go on and on, but folks, we are planners first, and then we give advice. We don't share our opinions in a vacuum. We have to have the plan. Now, keep in mind, as we record this show, today is November 12th, 2024, with the stock market at all-time highs, many savers are starting to think, okay, is now the time to jump into the market? I remind you, folks, as a planner, we're not going to chase returns. We're not going to try to time the stock market. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to stay in our lane and make sure we adhere to the plan. That's what you have to do, because retirement is a long-term deal. This is not a one-shot deal that you ebb and flow in and out of. The plan is what's going to guide us. And if you're a saver and if you don't have a written plan, then we need to talk. Oh, by the way, before I introduce a few guests in the studios, I'm very excited, speaking of planning, in our process of the Worry-Free Retirement, Step 3 is called committing to the game plan. Earlier, we talked about 3 of the folks that I worked with and these examples of plans that ended up doing business with us. And if that's you, if you end up doing business with us after going through the process and our assessment, you're going to get to Step 3 called commit to the game plan. And we have an onboarding process that's very exciting now and very fluid, easy for us to help you move your money over, whether it's from other brokers, at the bank, 401k plans. We've got this down to a T, and basically we're going to do all the heavy lifting. If you decide to move your money over, we'll do everything. We'll do our best to keep all those costs down or negligible at best, but we're going to handle everything. So if you ever want to just sit down and go over everything with me, learn more about our process, obviously just go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. And one more time, speaking of TonyWalkerFinancial.com, many of you have asked for audiobooks. We have 3 of our books, free audio downloads at TonyWalkerFinancial.com, The Worry-Free Retirement Process, Live Well, Die Broke, and Expect the Best. All free. You just go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, and I think you would enjoy listening to those books. All right, with us in the studio is, I say a surprise guest. They're not really a surprise guest because they're here every week producing this show, but we've got mic'd up both. Listen, folks, real treat for you. Both America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orander, and Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson. So first of all, Aaron, good morning.
Good morning to you, sir. Good morning, audience.
And Derek, good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
So the reason I wanted you all on, what a lot of folks probably don't realize is we meet every week, Derek and Aaron both, along with Trey and Gina and Wes to a certain extent, always map out these shows. And one of the quotes we dragged out, I love this quote, is from William James, who lived from 1842 to 1910. And he says, the greatest use of life is to spend it for something that will outlast it. And that's part of the plan, folks, in the Worry-Free Retirement, is to spend and enjoy this money. The problem is sometimes when we're out there getting advice, we get poor advice that doesn't allow us to use and enjoy the money. So I asked our two cohorts here to come in and maybe give examples of maybe advice they received in the past that didn't turn out so good. Aaron, did you think of an example in your own life?
Yes. So just like so many other people, when I graduated college, it was kind of like, okay, now what? So I kind of did some, little jobs here and there. And someone, I don't honestly remember who it was, probably like somebody from college, they turned me on to a company, and it was in Lexington, and I don't remember the name of it, folks, so I'm not going to, say anything about them. But it was a company in Lexington to where basically it was a job search company. You pay them, and they will find jobs for you. So I had to go down there.
This isn't sounding good.
Yeah. I think I spent about $400 that I probably did not, well, there was no probably about it. I did not need to spend $400 to set up, my profile and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, I never got a job from that company, but they got $400 from me.
Derek, you got any examples of bad advice someone gave you?
Yeah, about last year, Wes told me to bet on UK winning a basketball game, and they lost badly, so.
Never listen to Wes.
No, I guess I don't teach betting odds at fiduciary school.
At fiduciary school. So, and then it was interesting. We were kicking around this quote by William James. Again, the greatest use of life is to spend it for something that will outlast it, which I love that quote. But then Derek kind of chimed in. You found a quote that was right up there with it. What did you quote?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite quotes. It's a Greek proverb, and it says, "A society grows great when old men plant trees in whose shade they shall never sit."
Wow, that is pretty cool. So, and it gets into this discussion that we tend to have on the Worry-Free Retirement of what do you want to do with this money? What's the purpose of it? And that might be a good show that we might even do, is the purpose of money. So maybe you guys make a note of that, because that's pretty cool. And I think about that in my own walk. I mean, I'm now 64 years of age, and even with the company that you two are employed by, Worry-Free, obviously you're a lot younger. Tony Walker Financial, which has 19 full-time employees now. You've noticed we're hiring a lot of younger people. And I think those younger people come in, not that they don't have an appreciation necessarily, but like I said, they get to kind of walk and sit under these trees that have been planted years ago by clients and everybody else. And it's a wonderful thing. It's kind of like that's what life's supposed to be about. And then hopefully you guys and the younger folks, as they get older, they do the same thing for others. So that's a great quote. Speaking of quotes on this William James thing, one of the things that planning tries to do, folks, and that's why you need to find a fiduciary that you can kind of, I guess, relate to in terms of what you want to do with this money. And that's part of the Worry-Free Retirement. Part of the philosophy, the Live Well, Die Broke philosophy, is to really think about, as Derek said, what kind of trees are you planting out there? And maybe you're not going to enjoy quite as much shade as somebody else, but it should be a gratifying feeling to know that what you've worked so hard to do will benefit others. One of the concerns I have is many of you with these tax-invested 401k plans, you've grown up these great trees, let's say, and you're creating some shade, but the problem is Uncle Sam could rip down some of those trees when you pass away. We call that the tax tumor. So I would say this, the election is behind us. We still don't know what's going to happen to the tax laws at the end of 2025. But I would say this, with the deficits we have, I saw something the other day, gentlemen, that the interest payments alone on our debt, listen to this, equal the entire budget of our military. That doesn't bode well. You also be a little nervous about this. In other words, we can barely afford to pay the interest. We're not paying the debt off. So here's the point, folks. As a planner, as a fiduciary, I've got to believe at some point we're going to have to wrangle and deal with this debt, which could affect, future taxes. That could always be the case. So if that's you right now, if you don't have a plan for dealing with that tax tumor, if you've got an IRA, 401k, 403b, you're retired or nearing retirement, there's time to redo this, folks. You don't have to just sit there and wait for the government to come in and rip down a few trees and take that shade away from your kids. Why don't we do this? Why don't you set up a no-obligation phone call to talk to me about your retirement plans? Let's get a plan in action. Let's quit worrying about advice right now. Let's get a plan, and then we can set up the advice. To talk to me further, my name is Tony Walker. Just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or give us a call anytime at 877-499-9255. Well, we hope you've enjoyed today's program. You remember, between now and next week, though, if all else fails, you be worry-free and you make it a good one.